One of my favorite Zen Buddhist stories is the story of a monk meditating on a boat. And he's just floating on this boat in the middle of the lake. And he's really struggling to get into meditation. And he finally manages to calm his mind, to be present, to focus. When suddenly another boat crashes into his. And he just feels this anger come up in him. He's about to open his eyes to tell this guy, like, what the hell do you think you're doing? And he opens his eyes. And the other boat is empty. And I love this story because it points back to the fact that the other boat is always empty. I think Osho said this. The other boat is always empty. Whether that boat has someone in there or not, the reaction that arises in me reveals something about me. The reaction is mine, and the reaction is always mine. That's not to say that other people aren't responsible for their actions. They are, but I'm responsible for my reaction. And the more I can take responsibility of my reactions, the more I have power. Because if I live in a world where the way that I react, other people are responsible for that, for the way that I feel, the way that I think, the way that I act, then I live in a world that controls me. I'm powerless. I live in a cage. But the more I realize that my reactions are my unconscious patterns coming to the surface, it's my unconscious conditioning that comes to the surface, then every single reaction is an opportunity for awakening. Because every reaction shows me a part of myself. And what transforms that reaction is to meet that reaction with presence. When I am present in the midst of the urge to react, and I can actually either sit with it or breathe through it or feel it in my body, this urge to react. Whether it's simply by whether you're sitting in meditation and you feel this discomfort, and you just want to fidget and move, and instead you just decide to be with that. Can I just feel that? Am I really called to moving right now? Or can I just be with it? Or if it's in daily life and someone says something, and essentially this is a very humbling perspective, but we get triggered when we don't get what we want. And that's essentially when we get triggered, when we're not getting what we want, when life or other people are not acting the way that we want them to act. That's a very humbling fact, to realize that each time it's this kind of egoic tantrum. But I really encourage to meet it with compassion and love. So maybe calling it a tantrum could be creating more resistance and inner judgment. But if I get triggered by other people, if I can actually be present with the emotions that arise in me before I say something, before I do something, many times we'll mess this up. If this is actually something you're committed to and you try and transform and you try and bring presence into every single instant of your life, you're going to fail so many times. And that's okay. But there will be times where an emotion comes up and actually I can be with this. This is where my attention is needed. Whenever there's the urge to shame, blame, complain, explain, those are verbal indicators that let us know that we're lost in the reaction, we're lost in the ego. But if we can actually take a breath, put a hand on the chest, go for a walk, but feel the emotions, because actually we don't truly react to the world outside of us. Things happen that trigger an emotion in us, and then it's the inability to be present with that emotion that pushes me to react, that pushes me to go out in the world and do sometimes very tragic things. Because it's very rare that we act from a reaction and we actually succeed to get our needs met and get other people's needs met. Very often it's a tragic expression of unmet needs. Very often it does not result in us getting what we need and want. So how do we bring more presence in these moments of reaction? I think first of all to have a daily meditation practice where we sit with ourselves. A moment where we're in a kind of sterile scientific environment, like a laboratory, where there's nothing distracting us, and I just sit with myself. That alone, can I sit with myself for 10 minutes, for 20 minutes, for 30 minutes, for 1 hour? Can I simply sit with myself without it being this overwhelming experience of discomfort and dissatisfaction? Can I just be with myself? Simply being, breathing. When I get lost in thought, just bring my attention back to sensations, emotions. Can I give myself the attention? Can I feel my emotions without getting overwhelmed? That's essentially the core of it. Can I simply feel the physiological changes in my body that come with every single emotion, the energetic signature of each emotion? Can I be with that, with shame? Can I feel shame in my body and not react? Can I feel anger in my body, or sadness, grief, fear? Can I feel these different energy signatures in my body and not act on it? Simply to be with it. And it's actually in this way that we can heal trauma. Because trauma is a past experience. It's an experience that I had in the past that was overwhelming for me. And so I adapted. I have some survival adaptations that that happened as a result of that overwhelming experience. And then I carry these survival adaptations through my life, even if they're no longer necessary, no longer serve me. That's why that if you've had a very unstable household growing up, you might still live your life as if you're still living in that household, although you're not. Although you're a grown adult and you live with another adult and it's not at all the same situation, you still live there. You still have it in your body. You've captured it and you experience reality through that filter. And each time we are triggered, it's essentially the past resurfacing. We are not suffering what Janice, to quote one of my teachers, what Janice said at the office. You're not reacting to that. You're reacting to your scars, the wounds that have been left by overwhelming experiences of the past. So when Janice says something, suddenly you're feeling 8 years old, 4 years old. You feel like a 4-year-old child scared because she's criticizing you. And so when we meet these emotions, again, with fresh eyes, with presence, with this pristine, clean presence, then it transmutes. Because if every time I feel that emotion, I just react in the same way, that's a pattern. I'm just strengthening a pattern of reaction. That's called the ego, the personality. It's just an automatic pattern of reaction. But when I feel that emotion and suddenly I approach it, I meet it in a different way, then I'm interrupting the pattern. Without actually going in there and doing something, I'm simply meeting it in a new way. I'm meeting it with presence. That's how we heal trauma. Because we interrupt the pattern and suddenly we meet that which once was overwhelming in a way that isn't anymore. It isn't overwhelming anymore. For me, for Janice to say something and the emotions come up and I feel 4 years old again, the past has resurfaced, and can I be there? Can I offer it the presence that I wish I had received back then? That's why this whole healing of trauma feels a lot like becoming the parent you always needed. Because when you feel overwhelmed and triggered and at the time you didn't have the kind of support that you needed, now you become that support for yourself. You become that open, unjudgmental, loving, compassionate presence that you needed as a child. So by feeling our emotions fully, we are healing the past and we are bringing presence in the places where we have taken it away. We have intentionally taken away presence from parts of our life because it was too painful. But the only way to transcend that pain is by infusing these spaces within me, these emotions, these thoughts, these painful experiences, to actually meet them willingly. And that's what transforms pain. Because suffering is the unconscious unwillingness to experience. The unconscious unwillingness to experience. So when I consciously and willingly start experiencing that which I've been avoiding my whole life, then it transmutes. So the more you can do this, the better. When there are emotions, even when you think you're feeling quite neutral, just check in. How does it feel in the body right now? How does it feel to be me? Is there any emotional energy in me right now? I invite you to follow as I guide you there. Or if you take a deep breath, relax the shoulders, relax the face. And just check in, how does it feel to be me right now? Can I feel any energy in the face, the throat, the chest, the belly, in the hands? Can I feel any emotion present in me right now? Can I breathe into that? Maybe place a hand on top of it. And just offer it this unjudgmental, compassionate presence. You're welcome here. You can stay here for as long as you like. Thank you for being here. And we use these words to soften the resistance that I have towards these sensations. Using words of welcome, of gratitude. Not to change the experience, but simply changing my relationship to the experience. Because that's where suffering lies. It lies in my relationship with experience. It's this pushing away, this shying away, flinching away from experience that is suffering. Experience in itself is innocent, open. So as much as you can, try and meet your emotions, feel them fully in the body, welcome them, and heal your past.